The story of Rigathi Gachagua's rise to becoming Kenya's deputy president in the 2022 election was like watching a dramatic thriller with twists and turns and a bit of comedy thrown into it for a good measure. And this was because most of the people that supported Raila Amolo Odinga and Martha Karua never thought probably this was going to ever last. Anyway, to any casual Kenyan, Gachagua's partnership with President William Samoei Ruto seemed to be a very perfect match made in political heaven on the surface. But underneath it, underneath those polished campaign photos and shakes, the rallies, the speeches, it reached a point where people could even eat chapati that Gachagua and William Ruto were distributing. They could eat mira just to show that they were to manipulate people to think. Now we can talk about manipulation anyway. So to manipulate people to think that this was the perfect choice for everybody. But underneath it underneath those photos and everything was a tale of power, strategy, scandal, and a bit, of course, a few things here and there that they were planning to gain together. Now, why did Ruto pick Gachagua as his deputy president? In the high-stakes chess game that is the Kenyan politics that was happening in 2022, Ruto's choice of Rigathi Gachagua as his running mate was not as simple as picking a trusted friend. For many people, Gachagua was not very much known, but in the Mount Kenya region, he had very deep roots. But Ruto had to make a very careful, calculated move if he wanted to win the election in 2022. By the time the 2022 presidential race came around, Ruto was in need of somebody who could deliver to him Mount Kenya vote and at the same time be ready to hurt the Kenyatta family, because definitely they were against his presidency. So there he found the man that had worked. He found the man Gachagua that had already worked with Uhuru before, like the Kenyattas before. So Ruto was in need of this person, and this person became Gachagua. It would have been Kindiki before. And because the area holds a substantial chunk of Kenya's voting population, it was important for him to go for Gachagua. And who was better anyway than Gachagua, who had deep roots in the Mount Kenya region, powerful personality, and the ability to whip up emotions and whip up crowds faster than anybody that could have done it for him at the time. So Ruto did just need someone who could give speeches though. That is why Gachagua was very important. He needed somebody who could grease the wheels of the campaign as well, both politically and financially. And Gachagua had the muscle. So Gachagua, with his controversial business dealings and considerable wealth, was really a very perfect partner for William Samoei Ruto. So although allegations swirled around about his involvement in shady business deals, from questionable tenders to underworld connections, that was supposed to give him gave him a very immense financial resources. He was so important to William Ruto for that reason. In Kenya's politics, money talks, and Gachagua had the ability to fund that campaign and make it more attractive to so many people, and he really did. However, Gachagua did not come along without any baggage. Gachagua didn't just walk into the spotlight unscathed. His past was a mix of political ambition, financial gains, and also a little bit, just a little bit, but scandals as well. From his time as the district officer to his close association with powerful figures in Mount Kenya region like the Kenyatta family, Gachagua built a reputation as both a fighter for the Kikuyu people and a man who was not above his position to line his pockets. By the time he joined Ruto's ticket, Gachagua was already facing multiple corruption cases, with one particularly notable ruling in July 2022 that required him to return a whooping 202 million Kenya shillings that was linked to suspicious dealings. Some might say Gachagua was the Teflon man. Nothing could stick. In fact, after Ruto and Gachagua assumed office, many of these cases evaporated into thin air, with charges quietly being dropped as if by magic. It was because somebody was against him during the campaign season. Some saw this as this sign that part of their political pact included Ruto protecting Gachagua from legal consequences. And so Gachagua started getting what he also needed. So when two people come together, one thing that Kenyans need to know is that they also strike a deal. Even Ruto, those days, there was a lot of allegations that his debt had already been paid. If you guys remember, a lot of people alleged that Ruto had been paid his debts. And so Gachagua too required to be paid after they assumed office. After all, what's a little corruption scandal between friends, especially these two that were running a whole country, that Gachagua anyway ended up telling us it was a company. As if Gachagua's controversial history wasn't enough to keep journalists busy, there were whispers about how Ruto used him to strike back at his former ally, the President Uhuru Kenyatta, the former President Uhuru Kenyatta. Remember that sheep invasion story, if you remember, that one day we just woke up and supporters of Gachagua allegedly stormed Uhuru's vast property, making off with hundreds of sheep as a show of dominance. It was petty, of course, almost comical form of political warfare, but it sent a very clear message. Ruto and his camp were in control now, and they weren't afraid to flaunt the power, and Gachagua was the easy person to use for that kind of a job. Whether Gachagua was directly or indirectly involved, or just conveniently not spotting it as a matter of speculation, but there was an added layer to his complex and sometimes absurd legacy. So he was definitely part of that deal. Now, our Gachagua has fallen from grace to grass, because now he's facing impeachment from the 2 years down the line. 2 years. Now, fast forward to 2024, and the once loyal deputy president finding himself increasingly isolated. The first cracks in Ruto and Gachagua's political bromance started showing when Gachagua became more vocal about his allegiance to Mount Kenya region. He made no secret of the fact that he considered himself the ultimate defender of the Kikuyu interest, famously quipping that Kenya was like a company where some people held more shares than others. It was a line that endeared him to his Kikuyu base and alienated him from the rest of the country. While Gachagua's diehard loyalty to Mount Kenya may have served him well during the campaign, it quickly became a liability once he was in office. Many accused him of being too regionally focused, neglecting national unity in favor of regional politics. His blunt, often controversial style didn't really help matters, and soon enough, people are now whispering about starting an impeachment, which is already circulating in media, in parliament probably, and among his friends, and he's really gotten very isolated. The economic struggles that are facing Kenya, the soaring inflation, unemployment, and rising cost of living have only added fuel to the fire on Gachagua. Critics have pounced blaming Ruto and Gachagua for their perceived failures to address these issues. However, Gachagua is bearing the biggest brunt of this political frustration, with some seeing him as being out of touch with everyday struggles of ordinary Kenyans. But is Gachagua really disposable? Many people have claimed that Ruto, ever the strategist, has been distancing himself from Gachagua in recent months, including not attending meetings with him, and this has been seen both in private and in public. So as Ruto attended a meeting on, I think, Sunday, and Gachagua missed that meeting in Nyeri. While Gachagua once served his purpose in securing Mount Kenya vote, he may now be seen as a liability because, of course, Ruto has already gotten what he needed. There are rumors that Ruto is eyeing ways to divide Mount Kenya vote into future elections in Mount Kenya East and West, possibly with new allies who are less prone to controversy. And Gachagua's is starting to look like yesterday's news. You know, like Gachagua is now long gone. Ruto got what he wanted and he's now dumped him. Of course, some speculate that Ruto could be ready to let Gachagua take the fall for any government mishaps, particularly as calls of impeachment of both of their impeachment get louder. You know, it's a classic political move. You to use somebody to gain power, then discard them when they are no longer useful. That is what I see Ruto doing. The writing seems to be on the wall, but Gachagua, ever the fighter, isn't going down without a fight. That is very clear to everybody. Now, the questions a lot of Kenyans are asking themselves, if Ruto is ready, because we Kenyans have problems with everybody, Ruto, with Gachagua, we really don't want the both of them. In fact, if I were to be asked, I know both of them are not better, but if I were to be asked, they need to be impeached together. If an impeachment needs to be set in motion, then Kenyans should impeach both Gachagua and Ruto because they've been so unfavorable to Kenyans. But now, most Kenyans are asking themselves, should Ruto be impeached too? Now, to some might say, if Gachagua faces impeachment, shouldn't also Ruto go down with him? Because the two of them, we voted for them together. Of course, I know the law says something different about impeachment of the deputy president. But the kind of things that Gachagua has done, probably to many Kenyans on the face, what he did was to defend the Kikuyu people. I'm not saying that is what he was supposed to have done. But compared to what Ruto has been capable of doing within those 2 years, they should really both of them go down. After all, the rise to power was a joint effort, with both playing key roles in navigating the murky waters of Kenyan politics. Then why should one of them be going and the other one be left? Yet, they have both of them performed poorly. Ruto cannot be cunning. He can't use his cunning nature to play cards, make it look like Gachagua should take the fall for everything, and Ruto is the saint. This can't be like that. Ruto has largely stayed above the fray, trying to make his relative image look better. He has used the money, the power, the capacity to look for support from the different Mount Kenya regions that he's trying to divide and cause that confusion so that people don't agree. So it's all about divide and rule. It is a masterclass of political survival for him. And so he needs to draw that wild card of Kenyan politics. And between now and December, they've said anything can happen in terms of impeaching Gachagua. In the end, the two of them, Ruto and Gachagua, their political perfection, their ambition, their scandal, their strategy is over. This relationship, of course, was started from shared power and might and deal, and it was all about to fight. It was being used to fight Uhuru Kenyatta, and now we can see how it has ended. Let us not also forget that Ruto had similar problems, even worse probably, because he campaigned for 5 continuous years. Uhuru wanted to impeach him but never impeached him. He stayed in power until his 10-year period ended. But I think this time round, Ruto is smart and he knows what he's doing, and he really wants Gachagua out. But let us also not forget that Ruto could not work with Uhuru. He can now not work with Gachagua, and we don't know if he can really work with the rest of the people well. It leaves a lot to be desired about him. Now, I don't know what you guys think, but leave us your comment in the comment section below.